really not the world's fastest car, the world's plane. That's a good entry point. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children, in addition to babies, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. My name is Deven Morgan, Director of Baseball at Driveline, founder of Driveline Academy, and I'm joined as per usual by my brother by choice, not by blood, Driveline Academy Assistant Director and Driveline Academy International Man Mystery, Jeremy Tactile. Housekeeping, I was just about to, because we didn't do housekeeping last week with the group pod.
No, there were too many people to keep house.
Yeah, we had too much going on. So let's get back to that. Axbat.com, code DL20. Get yourself 20% off. Axbat.com, if you do not know, is the home of all of your stick and ball sport enthusiast training tools. Hence Axe Bat. They got a whole bunch of bats. So whether you're looking for crazy hot USSSA bats, which is just a thing that they released, because if you live in an area where you're like playing in U-Trip rules, you better have a U-Trip bat, no matter how much that's going to pervert the actual hitting performance you're getting. Like, you need to, go into a gunfight with a gun, not like a mildly sharp, stick.
Yeah, a spear.
Yeah, spear. Yeah, spear.
Even if you live in an area where they don't really do USSSA tournaments, but like randomly they'll turn one tournament over the summer. That'll
happen.
Into a U-Trip tournament.
Why not?
For Mother's Day, because, moms like bombs, I guess.
So, U-Trip bats, they also released their new USA bats. Again, the thing with the USA bat standard is that, like, none of them are hot in terms of, like, the technical specifications. So stuff that matters a lot is something like swing weight, and my good friends over at AxeBat are, like, picking up on I think, the thing that we've been putting down. They're leaning into that on the marketing side, which is cool. And again, BB core bats, training bats, all that stuff, DL20. We'll get you 20% off. Some of that goes directly to our scholarship fund. So you're doing a good thing for the world and getting a good bat for your kid. 2 birds, 1 stone. In addition, Youth Underload Smash Bat, which is quickly going to become the Youth Underload Skinny Smash Bat. To make it really apparent to you, not only informed listener that's listening to the Driveline Academy podcast, but also customers that might be into like a Dick's Sporting Goods, skinny barrel is a good thing. And again, we've talked about this before, but when you think about good hitting, what we're talking about is hitting balls flush. That's the thing that makes our sport the most difficult thing in the world. Round barrel on a bat, round ball. Task complexity and increasing the task complexity is a good thing for you and your hitters, because ideally, if we do that consistently and we train in a way that is like increasing the level of difficulty when you get into competition, and we all know how hard up everybody is to go win a ball game, do cool stuff in the game. That's what the point of all this training is. You're making the in-game task a little bit more palatable because you train in a way that it's really challenging. You can pair that with anything that will give you like very good feedback on bat to ball contact, such as the mid hitting plyos and regular hitting plyos and smash factor balls that are above me. But Youth Underload Smash Bat, which is quickly going to become the Youth Underload Skinny Smash Bat, is the thing for you. It's the best $79 you can spend. In addition, we have the Youth Power Bat. Power is a good thing. Power is a byproduct of bat speed. We had a 2-bat speed training system. Now we have 1, and it is dead simple. The revised free program that you can get at drivelinebaseball.com for free 99, FREE, free 99. I know that I marble mouth this stuff sometimes, so let's just make sure that it's free.
Even if it was $3.99, good deal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is going to have all the programming that you need to be able to use that power bat to with consistency to develop bat speed. Bat speed is the most critical ingredient to like good things happening in hitting, in addition to hitting the ball flush. So perhaps you could do both of those things. And for the cost of like less than 1 lesson, or maybe a lesson and a half, you're going to get tools that your player can use to help them get better as a hitter in a very definitive fashion. So Youth Underload Smash, Youth Power Bat, we got those things. Skills Skill Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual is going to give you all the information you might need to be able to connect all the dots on this stuff, so you can get that as well. We've released a new bundle where the Skills at Scale book comes with the Youth Baseball Development Certification, so you can do that as well if you're like, hey, I want to do like 7-8 hours of certification and know everything I need to get through this end of the spring and then into the summer. And then the book you can be able to enjoy at your leisure. Or you can just cherry pick and jump into chapters. It's got all the stuff that you'd want. And in addition to the book, it's got the online resources. So hitting drill videos, throwing drill videos that are all like annotated and done by me. 6-week practice schedule, long-term athletic development, game strength development, and athleticism development game library, the dynamic warm-up library, and then all of our programming for bat-to-ball skills and bat speed and thrown ball velocity development and developing into like a competition phase. It's just got all the stuff. Okay, that's it. I feel like it has been much more than a week since we've done this. And I don't know, I'm not sure why, but I feel like we haven't done this in like 3 weeks.
Because last week was different.
Yeah, last week was different.
Like we had the whole group on, so it was different.
Yeah.
And a lot has happened over the last month or so at in our world.
Yes.
So it feels like it's much longer.
It does. High school season is now largely over for the majority of our kids. Do we have anybody that's still local in high school playoffs? Has everybody got? We have
Jack Butler, baby.
Oh yeah, man. Okay, so we need to talk about Jack and Jerry Butler. Jerry, the elder Butler, Jack, the younger, have been with us for 3 years, 2 years. Ooh.
Oh, at least 3. Yeah,
I think so. And I want to say this in a way that makes sure that like I need you to know that this comes with love. When Jack first stepped into the building, he wasn't the biggest, strongest kid. And that's not a criticism, that's just the reality of like where he was strictly almost from a lens of like biological development, right? That's just where he is. And Jack is a kid who was attracted to the idea that like you could learn where you are right now, have an idea of where you need to go, and then just like keep taking slow bites of that whale, right?
Jack was the kid. And again, we're saying all of this with love. You know we love you, Jack. Jack is the kid that probably gets turned away from most select and travel ball programs.
Correct, which is just like
especially at 14U, right?
Yes.
Like what he looked like at 14U, he just hadn't. He was a late bloomer. He was small. He was not strong.
Yep.
He was a competent baseball player, but like he's the kid that's you're maybe a second baseman or like my 8th to 12th pitcher on my team or whatever.
Right, and I think press play right now on my Screed. Screen. Screed. That's right. All right. You used it the other day.
I did.
Press play on my Screed about this thing where club and select baseball teams have to make choices about players who do and don't give them positive leverage in the current term when the whole thing revolves around winning. With the value proposition you propose to both players and parents is that like we're going to win a lot, it inherently pushes you away from taking kids in your organization who you don't see the initial payoff of that. Right? The problem is that we know that there's a lot of good things can happen between those ages of like 12, 13 to 16. In the right system. And to further complicate matters, Jack also doesn't live super close to our facility. And what they entered into was basically like a hybrid version of like online and in person. They did the in-person stuff as much as they could, but again, this is no small feat for both Jack and Jerry to be consistent on the remote stuff. Like that's where the secret sauce is.
I was going to say, there's a million Jack Butlers out there.
Yeah.
But there's also one Jack Butler.
Yeah.
Right? In the sense that there are a million kids that look like he did at 14U that maybe don't play 15U baseball or into high school, or maybe they're that kid that just plays high school baseball and doesn't play traveler select or things like that. The vast majority of those kids just like move out of the game. Yes. That's not Jack.
No. Do you have the stat line pulled up? I mean, and obviously, like we're doing all this to set up something pretty flippin' cool, right? And the great thing is that because Jack stayed consistent both in gym and in person, used the system and technology to inform how he can help himself get better, adequately and again consistently addressed the strength and athletic preparation engine underneath. Jeremy, tell him about Jack's line this year.
Oh, this year. I was going to say last night.
Well, we can go both.
Yeah. So he started in their what I believe was their first varsity playoff game, potentially second, but first or second playoff game. He went 6 innings CG, 2 hits, no earned runs, 1 walk, 4 Ks. On the season, I have to filter over.
Yep, different.
Thanks, game changer. 25 and a third innings, 5 earned runs. 29 punchies. In 25 innings, 12 walks. 1.382 ERA.
And if you don't understand that, like I know that like if you're listening to the show, you've probably heard us talk about Jack intermittently from the time that we started doing it, right? And you've heard us give shout outs to Jack and Jerry because they listen here.
Yeah.
I want to do 2 things. I want to, in so much as I can, use this podcast platform to like give that kid a virtual hug because I'm so proud. But I also want people to understand that like this is a thing that we're doing not by accident but by intention. This is the result of like an attachment to development that's centered around the stuff that's going to give you leverage in the current term and in the future. And again, Jack is not a kid.
He also went 1 for 4 and drove in 2 runs.
Oh, babe. Let's get the whole 2-way players are our thing, right? And I want to connect this to another thing that like lit up my social media and probably made the last week of my life feel like it was like 2.5 weeks.
Sure.
Which is, if anybody's like tangentially connected to baseball social media, you probably saw the video of the 14-year-old kid punching 86-4. I had a very simple comment. What I thought was a simple comment, an innocuous one even. I said, this is awesome, and it's as awesome as it is sad that people are like in the comments effectively like wishing TJ on the kid. And then, you know, I had 500,000 people like literally, you know, we're not wishing Tommy John on him, but we're just worried. But like you're not contributing to anything positive in the discussion either.
Correct.
Because like in the abstract moment, he does not have Tommy John.
Right. You should, I feel like, and you listen to this. Podcast listeners, you know that I'm not an online person.
Which is like the best way for us to do this because I can have like a ton of people get all, you know, kerfuffled or whatever, and then we get to have like a fresh discussion.
Yeah, and I have no idea what the kerfuffle was about. I did see the video. It did come across, my timeline, so I did see the video. And you should just respond to all these people with like the man in the arena quote.
Bro.
Like just over and over again, that's how you should respond to every one of these people.
I'm gonna screenshot that thing and just send it from the rest of it.
And just like continue to shoot it out to any person who wishes Tommy John because they were jealous that they couldn't throw 86 at that age or whatever. The first thing to me that stood out about that video, and I don't know if you commented on this or if people commented on this, man, that kid didn't look like he was a 14-year-old.
Well, and
chronologically, sure. If you don't put an age on that, I'm going at least 16.
Well, and
based on the body composition, what he looks like, he's clearly been working out, right? Like he's got a body.
And my dumbass, I like tried to introduce that idea into the conversation space, and it's just like, I guess it's a great thing that we can have this type of platform for the 125,000 people that have listened to it, because you guys are going to understand calendar age doesn't equal biological age. Right. Like that's just the thing. And the question that I posed in that discussion was like, if the caption said 16-year-old throws 86.4, we would be like, okay, that's pretty tight. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's pretty tight. We've got kids that throw harder. But 16, 86 mid eights at 16 is like, hey man, you're on a great track, right?
Did we? I'm gonna get you slightly off course here. Did we get a lot of these comments when we posted our showcase videos with like Noah, a 15-year-old throwing 85.
Yeah.
Your son throwing almost 85. Did we get these comments?
No.
Or no, because they're in high school. So, like, we're really just the differentiation is that 1 year of, like, being a high school athlete versus being, like, a 14-year-old.
And well...
And this 14-year-old could be in high school.
Correct. He absolutely could be one of those. He could be one of those kids. And, again, a point that I tried to make when I'm saying, like, hey, this is awesome, but it's also sad that, like, our first instinct is, like, Tommy John, Tommy John, Tommy John. Again, one of the points that I tried to make is, like, look, I'm not trying to be dismissive about the risk.
Right.
Absolutely I'm not. And I can tell you that I'm not being dismissive about the risk because of my literal lived experience with a 15-year-old child that doesn't look like that kid who throws mid-eights. That's my life. That's my literal life. The thing that he has created because he worked so flippin' hard and because when he was 8 years old, I pulled him out of school early to come down here. Yeah. This is the place that we've landed in. Yeah. And I'm not saying that it's not scary. Trust me, I have more access to biomechanics data than you do. I have more access to biomechanics data of kids. We have more access than anybody other than ASMI.
I was just going to say, basically anybody other than ASMI. And, like, it might be close, honestly.
Correct. So you don't have to tell me, and I'm not trying to be obtuse about the very real relationship between velocity going up and stress in the joints going up. That's a lived experience for us. But that doesn't mean that, number one, that Tommy John is a foregone conclusion. And the thing that I'm just going to tell you straight up, and this is probably not the most politically correct thing for me to say, but I don't care because I'm tired of seeing this get rolled out as if it's a fact. You show me scientific proof that says that the UCL reaches maturity at some specific magical age, and I will shut up about this. But I don't think that proof exists. I don't think that it's out there. I haven't seen it. It doesn't make sense to me because of a Jack Butler, right? If Jack is a kid who at 16 is still like just now getting his first growth spurt, in this kid who is 14, 8th grader, Blake Thompson, shout out to Blake.
Shout out to Blake. Killing the game, dude.
That kid, you can't tell me that both of those kids have the same end goal for when that ligament matures. That just, think about it. Right. That doesn't make any sense. And broadly, I actually didn't really want to get into that whole thing about the kid that throws mid-eights. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that, like, both of these paths are valid. You can have a 14-year-old in the form of Blake Thompson who throws 86.4. And that kid physiologically sure looks a lot more like most 16-year-olds than he does most 14-year-olds. Yes. So velocity is relative to force production, which is relative to, like, physiological athletic development. And if you read the comments, Tanner Bercier, Tanner, apologize if I'm getting your last name wrong, but so Tanner works at a facility, and it's like he posted the video and he got blown up. But like if you read his comments, it was almost like he had to apologize for it.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, he has multiple comments in that thread. He was like, "This is an accidental PR," but PRs don't come by accident. PRs come through improving force production and increasing movement quality, sequencing of the whole thing. Output, you throw harder. So again, for Jack's video, for Blake's video, what I tried to introduce this idea is like, oh, well, his mechanics are bad. Okay, well, what if his mechanics were better? How would that result? Would probably result in him throwing harder, right? Sequence gets a little bit better, mechanical path gets a little bit more efficient. Wouldn't you expect to see velocity as potentially an improvement there? Would that be worse? So you're telling me that it would be worse if he had better velocity or if he had better mechanics because he'd be throwing harder? Does that advance this discussion in any way, shape, or form?
It doesn't. It does not.
And then on the other hand, you have Jack, right? And Jack's been here for years. Jack doesn't throw as hard as Blake.
Not yet.
Not yet. But Jack throws harder than he would.
Yeah.
Right? Jack throws way harder than he would otherwise because he's had the opportunity to exist in this system that gives him clear information about where he is, where he needs to get. Jack is able to throw harder than he would because he's a dog and he stays consistent, even dealing with this challenge of not being able to be in the facility physically with the consistency. Because Jack throws harder than he otherwise would, he's improved his competitive ability at like a base level. Mm-hmm. Because Jack's able to participate in some of the technology and the training that we have here, he's able to weaponize his pitches and the development therein, even at not 86.4.
Yeah, his
stuff is gross.
His stuff is disgusting. His stuff is disgusting, and like the more you increase the velo, it's just going to get nastier and nastier. And that's like a really good example of a kid who knew how to play baseball. Mm-hmm. And didn't have the skill side developmental gains to go out there and be one of the best on the field. But he was like on the field. He knew how to play. He knew how to do everything. He was competent. Yep. You add some skill side gains to that kid. Now you're really cooking.
Yeah. And it frustrates me that, people exist as if baseball skill training broadly, and us specifically, are like still in, 2015.
Yeah, probably.
It's like max velo U. And like, I think we can be honest about the fact that there was a period of time where Driveline's approach to velocity development was like, throw it harder. Okay, throw it harder. Throw it harder, mm-hmm. Throw it harder, throw it harder, throw it harder. And their approach was like very binary at that point. It also was very revolutionary because most people couldn't even agree that throwing the ball harder was a good thing.
Right.
But the difference in the nuance here is that, like, Kendrick Lamar's Euphoria song that came out in the last week or so, and it's just got like a picture of like the dictionary definition of euphoria.
Yes.
I wanted to do a thread on Twitter that was like that with the word nuance. And I was going to like go through and talk about this stuff. Too much time. We had to launch Flex and whatever. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. The nuance here is not that Jack Butler needs to have every repetition he throws at like 130%. Mm-hmm. And that he should not be satisfied unless he also is throwing, 8 to 10 miles harder than any other like average peer in his group. It's not that. What it is Jack can be better if his stuff gets better. And velocity is one ingredient to that equation. How his stuff plays is another ingredient to that equation. And he has competitive ability increasing as he makes iterative progress along both of those lines. Mm-hmm. It's not the other thing. And it's not like we're going to say to a Jack Butler that like, oh, well, unless you can pull down 100 and be, nines off the mound, like that's going to be the incessant goal that we have.
Right.
Now, if Jack continues to develop, pairing his work with the system, with him starting to get into like some actual like biological growth phases. Look, we were just talking about it before we started, right? I think if Jack gets low 8s, he's playing college baseball.
I think Jack is playing college baseball no matter what at this point.
Yeah, that too.
I think there's like very legitimate Division I if he's mid-8s.
Not because he went to a showcase.
Right.
Not because he's going to fly all over the country doing camps. Right. Not because he's playing in a specific tournament organizer's events and he's been graded by them. Because his stuff paired with his actual competitive ability in the game is going to open up doors. Mm-hmm. And as he continues to increase both of those things, he's gaining additional leverage.
Mm-hmm. And the path is different for every single kid. And I think that's like probably the point you're trying to drive home is that the path that Jack Butler is going to take to play college baseball is very different than Blake. I don't remember what his last name was, but Blake.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't mean one of those paths is wrong.
Right.
But like every athlete should have a different development plan.
Yeah.
Of how are we going to get you to your end goal if your end goal is, playing college baseball.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that would have looked at Jack Butler and would have told us we were crazy.
Yep.
For looking at that kid and being like, we want you to play college baseball. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can get there.
Exactly. And, and again, one of the common refrains in Blake's video of hitting 86.4 was like, well, this is pointless. You don't need to throw mid-eights as a 14-year-old. And it's like...
How do you know that he does that in game?
Correct. Because again, personal lived experience. I've seen my kid when he was in a college showcase and we knew he was going to throw like 15 bullets. He dumped the tank and he fired one at 84.9 on the TrackMan. In game, 79.82. Like that's a real thing. So for Blake, he popped to 86.4 in a bullpen. And again, it's like this accidental PR that we have to globally apologize for. I'm sorry. How dare I throw the ball hard?
Right.
Well, what if that kid is 79-81?
As a 14U. We saw that last year.
We did, and it was nasty.
And, like, it's not overwhelming to the point where you're like, that kid's going to get hurt, right? In a game, throwing against you.
Yeah.
If we saw a kid consistently throwing 86, geez, like, this kid's dumping the tank, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of 14-year-olds that can sit 86 in a game.
Yeah.
Throwing 86 once in a max effort bullpen versus sitting 78 to 80 in a game.
Yeah.
It's massively different.
Yeah. And the point would be, number one, that both of those things can be true.
Yeah.
And number two is that by getting to that place as a biologically advanced 14-year-old, who again, his coach is talking about it in the post, is like the kid crushed the weight room. Tanner had a couple posts on there. He was just like, kid just like got after it in the weight room. Oh, and he started throwing a lot harder. Shocking.
Yeah, look at the kid. Of course he got after it in the weight room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, look, I don't want this to turn into like Deven is disappointed that social media is not the best place for us to exhibit nuance in this conversation, which is possibly part of what I get frustrated with.
Yeah.
But I think it's also just revealing about the way that we think about this stuff. Because look, I had a lot of people, no one's wishing Tommy John on him. We're just worried about it. Okay, so you're not wishing, you're projecting. You're projecting Tommy John at that kid for daring to be physiologically advanced and having that physiological advancement pair with strength training enable him to throw the ball at a level that like the overwhelming majority of 14-year-olds can't.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing?
Well, yeah, because they didn't do it. They didn't do it, or maybe their kid didn't do it. So then if somebody else does it, that makes it them or their kid look not as good.
Yeah.
If they have this idea in their head that I was one of the best 14U baseball players ever, and then you see a video of a 14U player throwing multiple miles an hour harder than you did at 14.
Maybe 20.
Yeah. You're going to feel like that makes your experience or your memories of your experience less than.
And then you pair that with a regurgitation of the stuff that helped you not be very good when you were that age.
Right.
Well, there's no reason for him to do strength training at 14. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Because that was another thing. You should just not do that.
Yeah.
Like
there was an interesting Baseball America article that came out over the last couple of days.
Oh, the Paul Skeens about workload?
About workload.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting article.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to go read that, but basically saying that like we've gone too far the other direction, where like it is actually a detriment to a lot of these pitchers, how much their workloads are capped in the minor leagues on their way up, and it's entirely the thing we've been saying, which is just chronic workload management over time.
Yep.
You're not going to keep a guy safe by throwing him no more than 60 pitches his entire minor league career.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're going to spike it when he gets to the bigs. See, of course he's not going to stay healthy.
Yeah.
He hasn't built that up chronically.
So if you think about in very basic terms, the actual way to kind of periodize this thing over a very long window of time is as consequence goes up and physiological development continues because the calendar progresses, you would continually like increase that chronic workload to suit. Well, that's not the system we have, right? That's not it. Amateur 18 and under, it's the Wild West, and there's no usage constraints. And for anybody who wants to tell me and wants to argue about how velocity is like the biggest factor here, well, unfortunately, none of the research agrees with that. None of the science agrees with that. I've posted, the relationship.
Logic doesn't agree with that.
Logic doesn't agree with that, right? I've posted the relationship between arm action efficiency scores, which is a thing that we have in our database, and elbow varus moments. And you can see the correlation between great mechanics and the amount of stress that goes on the joint. And there's no linear relationship there. There just isn't. We've had research studies done. Shout out to Driveline OGOC, who pointed this to me, and it's in the Skills at Scale book when I wrote about injuries. Everybody experiences velocity differently, right? That's a thing too. And again, in the background, the acknowledgement is that until we have computed muscle control, until we have the ability to understand the role that muscles, tendons, tissues, ligaments, etc., play in the production, distribution, and acceptance of force, we don't have the full picture. But the point is that there's just no binary way to look at this and say that's bad, that's good.
Correct.
Because if I did that, I would say that Blake throwing 86.4 at 14 is bad. And I would say that it is good that Jack throws much less hard than Blake does. Except the thing that globally affects both of them is chronic workload.
Right.
That's the one thing. Yes, there's all this variance in how everybody experiences velocity. Yes, there is a difference between calendar age development and biological development. The reason that you see Little League elbow and Little League shoulder as the most prevalent injuries in our industry, and the ones that eventually, if you continue to pitch through them and pitch through soreness and pitch through fatigue, you can have full-blown UCL reconstruction or growth plate issues. Yeah. That's a thing that can happen too, is not because you're throwing 75 miles an hour at 12. They're 12-year-olds that throw 50 poo that have Little League elbow and Little League shoulder. Right. Why? It's the same thing. Yeah. It's just workload.
Yep.
So, I don't know. At the end of the day, I think a lot of that conversation did nothing more than just like add to my block list, which was tight.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a good thing. And it continually astonishes me. One guy said, he's like, I don't know who elected you to be in charge of youth baseball, but you're, blah, blah. Was like, I wasn't aware there was an election. I didn't think I was running.
This is a dictatorship.
Yeah.
There was no election.
This is Bartertown, man. This is not like there's no democratically elected leader of anything. It's just, it's marketplace economy.
Right. And as we've talked about, we want there to be an elected leader of youth sports.
Well, and somebody hit me, and I haven't even, it was like, well, you've seen and again, I really don't want to go down this path, but you've seen what happens with, when the federal government gets involved and COVID and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay. That can't be held up as like the one shining star of when the government got it wrong and us refusing to acknowledge all the other minor ways that like systemic rules in society are a good thing. Mm-hmm. Specifically when it comes to the protection of the safety of children.
Yes.
Try to go open a daycare. Try to open a daycare and see how that works out for you. Think about the amount of rules and regulation and protection that you need to be able to do that. Youth sport.
Yeah.
It's Bartertown, right?
No rules, regulations whatsoever.
Yeah, it's Bartertown. Master Blaster run Bartertown. Ah, man. Nothing better than when I used to put Core up on my shoulders and we just run around and play Master Blaster. That was the funnest. So, yeah, I want you guys to hear it from us that, like, do I want Jack to throw 90 someday? Sure. But, like, Jack's on his own timeline for when that's going to happen. And in the interim, we are neither going to deny him an opportunity to come in and develop, regardless of how he starts.
Right.
And we're also going to do so in a way that we are trying to periodize his development in a safe place so that he, and I don't even know that I want to say safe. In a considerate fashion, that he, again, continues to work towards a thing that's going to allow him to play the game for the longest.
We're not asking him to be Blake. We're asking him to be the best version of Jack.
Man, that part.
Yeah.
That part.
And I would say a CG with 2 hits and no earned runs in the first playoff game is the best version of Jack.
Yes.
And I can't wait to watch him pitch this summer.
Heck yeah. And, and I think we can kind of connect this to, like, the Mason Miller thing, too. Because there was a prominent account who was crapping on a kid that trained at another facility who gained some stuff in the offseason and then went out and had, like, a not great college season. And that account is dumping on him for, like, putting up a 7 ERA. All right. Well, let's talk about college ERA. Because there's this kid by the name of Mason Miller. Mason Miller's stuff is, top...
Vomit gross. Like vomit-inducing gross.
Top 3 grossest stuff right now. It's just, like... You see that at-bat that Schwarber had the other night? I think it was on Sunday Night Baseball. I can't remember who it was. I think they were playing the Giants. And it was just like... They
were playing the Giants, yeah.
First pitch, that way. Second pitch, that way.
It was Logan Webb, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. And there's a shot. I think Pitching Ninja had the video. Shout out to Rob. He's a great dude. And there's a shot after that second one of, like, Schwarber's just, like, in the box. He's kind of got his head down. And, like, you could just see the wheels turning of, like... God damn, man. Like, what am I supposed to do here?
What am I supposed to do? Yeah.
What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
Mason Miller's that type of guy. Mason Miller hasn't always been that type of guy.
You don't say.
Yeah. So when you start to think about, us talking about Jack and us talking about, Jack going through this iterative individual process of making himself better and opening up whatever doors that might want to open up if he wants to continue to maintain this attachment to being the best version of himself over and over and over. And again, I'm not going to, we can't be shy about the fact that, like, this type of approach to development is competition. I think this very much, like, we had a kid on your team the other night at practice say some stuff that was like, well, it basically was tantamount to, I'm good enough already. I don't need to continue to work. If I'm being generous. And I'm probably being a little generous. If you don't understand that development over a long period of time is simply a competition within yourself, then you're missing the point. So Mason Miller, first year in college. ERA, 7.03. 32 innings, so not really necessarily a small sample. 15 walks, 42 punchies. Striking out a lot of guys.
I was going to say, 15 walks isn't actually that high. I was expecting that number to be much, much higher.
Yeah, like, and punching out a lot of guys too, but, like, finding some barrels. 7 ERA, not great. Hey, you should probably just quit baseball. Next year, ERA goes to 7.16. Innings 32, the same. So, hey, we haven't drastically increased the workload. Great job. 28 walks, 22 punchies. That ain't good.
No.
Hey, you should probably just quit. Just give up, because some ex big leaguer that played 3 decades ago is going to crap on you publicly.
Yeah.
Next year, 67.2 innings. So we didn't do the best job of, like, not blowing the chronic workload out of the water, but let's presume that he did some amount of acclimation to that in the offseason because he stayed healthy.
Sure.
ERA 1.86.
Well, that's better.
Only 14 earned, over 67 innings, 31 walks, 97 punchies. And then the last year, I think he didn't play a lot, right? Yeah. Look, man, game's really hard. And as you continue to progress through these different stages of the game is going to inform you that like your stuff isn't good enough. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you need to quit. It means you need to double down on the competitive nature of making yourself better. I think that could be applicable to Jack. I think it could be applicable to this Blake kid, you know, because like, hey, he's mid-eights, and let's presume that he's going to dump that down a little bit once he gets on the mound. I think, his coach is talking about he's actually not even like a PO. He's a position player that they're going to come in and close. And like, we know that strategy of like you have a kid that's like a really good, well-rounded baseball player, and they also throw hard. You can bring him in to close a game like that works. Mm-hmm. There's no guarantee because this kid throws 86.4 that he's going to have a great and successful season this year in the summer.
Correct.
There are a lot of people online that like saw him zoo that first ball at 86.4, a little bit outside of the zone, would have decapitated a left-handed hitter.
Sure.
And they see that in isolation. They just presume that like the kid can't find it.
Yeah.
And that might even be true. Like if I think about what I know about like the speed accuracy trade-off, it could be that like because that kid, even if let's say he's 82, 83 off the bump, he might walk more than a guy who's 74.
Well, I think that's almost directly related to like kids at that age not wanting to swing because they're slightly afraid of the high velo.
Sure.
I'm going to hope I get walked here and maybe not swing until I have 2 strikes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's actually not the worst strategy.
I have seen it happen with my team for quite some time, where kids, I've heard other coaches in the dugout say, guys, don't swing.
Yep.
They're going to throw you 4 balls before they throw you 3 strikes.
Yep. Yeah, which is so anti-competitive.
It is, but there are absolutely, we have had games where that is a sound strategy for the other team.
Sure.
That like, if you just don't swing, you're probably going to get a run or two an inning because we will walk some dudes, we might even hit some dudes, and we might even throw some wild pitches, right? Like, that's kind of how that works.
And again, I think a lot of that whole part of things comes back to reasonable expectations of coordination and proprioceptive ability of children. Yeah, you can have a 14-year-old that's physiologically advanced in terms of like their biological development, it's a force application, et cetera, a lot of those systems of coordination and proprioceptive development have to do a lot more with cognitive development than they do with physical development. Mm-hmm. And if that has its own timeline that might not necessarily pair with the accelerated timeline that you have for physiological development, that's what you end up with. Physiologically advanced child who has the coordination ability of a not advanced kid. Because having both of those things occur is kind of rare, right? So the question is, like, well, how do you help that kid not decapitate a batter in the left-handed box when they're throwing mid-eights at 14? I truly, truly, truly don't know if there's any other path other than helping them get good at moving fast. Which means, in the current term, you might have to tolerate some walks.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, like, what are you trying to get as the end product? Are you trying to have the end product a kid who, if they are considerate with his development over the course of the next 2 years, should be mid to upper eights as a 16-year-old at the very least, and if he's healthy, the kid's going to play college baseball.
Yeah.
Like, just straight up. And, and if the rules hadn't been changed so that, this, like, early signage stuff was still allowed, there's no doubt that kid would already be committed.
Yeah, probably.
Insert previous screed about how those commitments don't necessarily give you any additional leverage because there's no weight behind them until you're old enough to sign the NLI, but I digress. That kid's gone a really, really good path.
Mm-hmm.
But there's Jack's path too. Like both things are in play. And again, I will take all of this back if somebody tells me that college coaches are just like looking for win-loss record. I'll take it all back. It hasn't happened yet.
No.
Hasn't happened yet. I don't expect it to happen anytime soon.
I also do not.
So yeah, man. Yeah. Flex launched.
Flex launched.
Pivot. Flex launched. So by the time that this comes out, we'll have put out our pod with Zach Moraine, who's the manager of our Flex product. Shout out to Moraine. Moraine had a fantastic thread. Not that we want to turn this into like Devin's reading hour, but I want to make sure that more people pick up on what Moraine was putting down here, because I think it's exactly what we want to do with Flex. And to be to make it really clear, what Flex is for us is an opportunity for kids that aren't on academy teams to be able to participate in this same system that Jack Butler's participating in, that my son is participating in. What it is, just to double down in case anybody missed the episode that has the full details of this, would have come out prior to this one. What Driveline Academy Flex is an opportunity to assess in the gym.
Yep.
To have some in-gym experiences in terms of like hitting groups and skill camps, meet with one of our trainers, get programming with one of our trainers that is like you can implement in your kid's season. So you can do the stuff without having to be on one of our teams. Gives us an opportunity to do more good, to work with more kids and give more kids really clear signal about where they are and where they need to be. And that applies to both if you're 14 throwing mid-eights and if you're 12 and you are behind the curve.
Yep.
Everybody benefits. So Moraine had this fantastic thread about basically what we're trying to do with Flex. And I'll read it for you. So this is Zach Moraine. You can follow him on Make It Moraine because that's a pretty dynamite username. So Zach goes, growing up in a small town in southwest Washington, I seemed to be the only one who cared about baseball. I wanted to play baseball as long as possible, but I lacked the resources, guidance, equipment, basically everything needed to do that, except ambition and the willingness to put in the work. I would spend days after school throwing tennis balls at walls, begging my dad to play catch and long toss, and throwing the occasional bullpen in the upstairs gym while all my friends begged for me to play basketball. But I'd rather prepare myself for baseball season. This is the consistency thing, right? Only problem was that I had not one clue what the hell I was doing. Neither did my dad, besides knowing that long toss was important. And I think that's very descriptive of like a lot of our parents in the equation, right? I dreamed of playing college ball. I dreamed of playing pro ball. But once again, zero guidance on how to get there and how good I needed to be. Gee, it's almost like we can unpack that. So fast forward 14 years, I had the opportunity presented by Deven and Jeremy to help give kids all over the world what I needed, wanted, and dreamed of as a kid. Flex is more than just a product to me. It's a thing teenage me would have gone nuts over. It's a thing that can change youth baseball for the better and help kids achieve the dream of playing baseball for as long as they possibly can, to objectively get better, to have a plan laid out to execute, and not be guessing on what they need to do in order to succeed. With snapshot assessments, training programs built off of that, monthly training meetings, communication between meetings, in-person hitting and skill clinics, and not to mention recruiting help. Flex is the program to help youth athletes get to the next level. And that's what Flex is. For 4 years, we just like walled this whole thing off. Didn't have it accessible. We had some limited stuff, like some fits and spurts to like having people do stuff in the off season with us, but they weren't consistent. And it's, again, completely understandable because the way that travel ball works is generally that like you sign up with the team and the team kind of controls you. Hence why we started this thing at scale in a team-only environment.
Yep.
Now that we have a fully fleshed out yearly training plan, now that we have staff that are able to modify that plan relative to where kids are in terms of their season and what their team demand is, now that we have the ability with markerless motion capture to be able to get kids in and get them information on their biomechanics, other technology to monitor both in gym and also at home, we now have the opportunity to like expand the scale.
Yep.
And I think the point for me is like addressing both sides of the ecosystem, both the Jack Butler and then the Blake Thompson. I think both of those kids, we're fortunate to have Jack in our team program. But I think you can actually think about Jack's development over the last couple of years as almost like a little bit of a trial about like what Flex actually is.
Yeah, because
You know?
he has not been able to, as you mentioned, they live pretty far, so they've been a hybrid for us.
Yep.
Between, we give them the programming, and they do a lot of it remote.
Yep.
They've got some tech at home that they utilize, and then they come in when they can.
Yeah.
For practices, and then they're with us basically the whole summer. But yeah, he's been a hybrid kid for a while now, and he was probably throwing more than 20 miles an hour slower than Blake Thompson at 14.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. I think I'm 99 positive that's correct.
That's got to be correct.
Yeah. So Flex is now out. Shout out to people that have already signed up because we've seen a pretty decent push there, which is great. The video just went out the other day, so that's on the Driveline YouTube. I'll have to repost it on our youth social too. But yeah, Flex is out, and I'm really excited to see how that goes. I think it's going to be really cool once we open up additional facilities, which is, again, another thing that's happening. We'll be able to start with Flex and products like that. Mm-hmm. It's really going to, I think, change the dynamics of our teams program, because when we were so strict about only having be in a teams environment, sometimes that means that you only have access to the kids who want to join your team. A lot of times in youth baseball, there isn't a lot of signal that I need to do something different if I'm winning, which then, okay, well, how are you winning?
Right.
Like, how are you winning? And when, at the end of the day, I think the thing that matters most is just like you do exist in this competitive development environment where you're just like competing against yourself about how good you can be, how consistent you can be. Flex gives us the opportunity to like actually expand that signal to a way bigger number of kids.
100%.
And I think it's pretty cheap too, quite all things considered.
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, which is a conversation we've had internally, but like, hey, we're just doing it, I think, because we think that it's right.
Yeah.
Which is great. So Flex is out there. Again, if you want more in the weeds details on that, refer to the podcast that come out the week before this one, because it's got all that good stuff. Only other thing I had was just like the wrap up on the high school season, which for me was hilarious because once Danny's season finally got over and we got out of this like loop of like baseball practices 6 days a week, realized he had like this cold that had been knocking around for a while. Took him to the doctor. Turns out we might have played the entire season with like walking pneumonia, which is tight.
Second player on my team to have fought through pneumonia for months without getting any help.
Oh, man. And like, boy, if that don't make you feel like a bad parent, I don't know what will. She's like, oh, great. Good job.
So most of our high school kids are back this week. It happens every year. And it is never not, I don't know if alarming is the word, but it never doesn't infuriate me how much weight these kids lose during the season.
Yeah.
Ryan Eaton losing 14 pounds.
Uh-huh.
Connor Veals losing 10 to 12, something in that range.
Yeah.
We know it happens. They do not lift well, if they lift at all during their seasons. They're probably not eating great during their high school seasons, and then it puts us at a deficit every year.
Yeah.
And it's I wish there was a way out of this cycle. There is no way out of this cycle. This is just going to be the thing, is that in that 3-month period, we're going to lose a bunch of the games that we got in the offseason.
Yeah. And if that's true globally for most kids, because I think there's more uniformity to, that version of high school baseball, which is just going to be a quote unquote grind. Mm-hmm. I think that just doubles down on the need to be able to really focus during that off season if you can anticipate that loss.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it just means that like you could potentially be worse as time moves on.
Yeah, you're going to be worse every year at the end of your season than you were before the season. If you don't then take that time to build yourself back up, you're starting at a deficit the next year.
Yeah. Yeah. And that deficit only compounds if you fall ball it, you winter ball it, and then you roll right back into the spring, and it's like, man, good luck. Good luck.
Yep.
So yeah, the high school season though, I think just was, I don't know. I had a lot of I think my biggest concern going into it was the coaches, honestly, because again, like I've talked about on here, this is the first time that my son's ever played for someone that either wasn't me or was like handpicked by me. Big control freak guy. I couldn't be any happier with how the high school coaches treated my son as a human being. And that's not just because, he got a varsity look, because even when he was on JV, I don't know. I think in my very acute individual example, a lot of my concerns were overwrought.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And I mean, and I guess that's for me, that's how I would end up going into it, right? Is I'm just going to construct all these disaster scenarios and worry about all that stuff. And then it turns out that like, oh no, that's like, the men involved with these programs are trying to do the best job that they possibly can of keeping kids healthy and having it, be fun. And I think specifically, when I think about the way that they've dealt with not only my son, but also some of the other kids that got looks, from JV up to varsity or even stayed on JV all year. I don't know. I'm so, I think sometimes, like I looked at some of the old feedback that we have on Apple Podcasts. This is my 10-second plea that if you have 90 seconds in your day and if you could go to either Spotify or Apple and rate and review the pod, that would be greatly appreciated. If you enjoy this content that we put out for free 99, you could do that. Do us a solid. That would be great. But like one of the criticisms that we had early in the pod was like basically suggesting that we, or perhaps I, was framing everything as like we're the only ones that do it right and everybody else does it wrong. And I would hope that that's not a thing that I've communicated because, shit, man, I know enough coaches at enough different levels to know that, like, we are not alone. And there are people who are, like, trying to do this thing the right way. Like, I got a text from somebody I know in pro ball the other day. It was like, hey, I'm looking for high school baseball coaches who might be interested to, like, smart coaches. They said smart coaches. I'm being a little obtuse here. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I got like 5 guys. Boom, 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 boom. 3 high school guys, 2 facility guys that have also coached or are coaching high school baseball. We are not alone. We are not the only ones that are trying to do it in a smart, considerate, and a developmentally forward way. And again, even if you have high school coaches who might not know everything about kind of skill development, but they're still, trying to do it as best they can with the tools they have available to them, man, that's all I can ask for. Mm-hmm. I think that's all that anybody can ask for. I was just so thrilled with that. And my son definitely appreciated it. I think he's got some stuff to learn about just getting out of his own way, which is amusing, but like very much, I think, typical, like, hey, you're a freshman on varsity and you're trying to figure out like what this all means, So it was good times, man. But I'm really also looking forward to the summer. I'm looking forward to have the kid. We were back in here on Saturday shooting stuff for the Flex ad. And he ended up, because of course he's here and he has the lab by himself. So we ended up hitting for probably, 45 minutes longer than we wanted to, despite the fact that we were very much hungry and trying to go eat. It was just awesome, to like, I think the power of seeing him back in here and weaponizing that feedback that you get on like a swing by swing basis about like, I don't know, man, it's just, that information is so impactful. It's so impactful. If you don't see it, man, just like go find a blaster, a DK sensor and throw it on a kid's bat and then have him take a really awesome swing, really good batted ball outcome, and be like, oh, what'd the sensor say? Yeah. Oh, you mean like I get that output when I have this input? Oh, I should just do that more. Light bulb, So yeah, high school season was good. And it's funny, like there's another video that I sent to my son this week. Somebody reposted like it was like 1963 or 64. It was like a day in the life of like Willie Mays. The clip opens with him hitting. My God, his bat speed. My God.
Yeah.
And it's like those dudes are swinging lumber back then. Yeah. Right? And it's just like, oh, that's one of the best baseball players of all time. Yeah, I'm not. No, that checks out.
Yeah.
That checks out.
Yeah, correct.
It was so awesome, man. It was so awesome. So yeah, that's about all I got.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, listeners of the pod know how much I missed the kids over the couple months. It was great to have them back. It was really fun for me to watch them see each other again for the first time for some of these kids since our last practice.
Yep.
They just literally haven't, like, you know, they have their Snapchat groups and all those things that I want no part of, that they communicate with each other.
I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Nope. So, like, they talk.
Yeah.
But, like, seeing them as excited as they were to be together again was really cool.
Yeah, no, it was awesome, man. And I'm really curious, I think, to see how that plays out in terms of team culture. You know, like, it's interesting. We've talked about this before. Like, the point of high school baseball is to win. And because we have the posture that we do, I don't think and I think it's a good thing that we don't enforce, like, that type of consequence early, right? I think we enforce it appropriately, honestly, where it's not like a live or die thing, but it is like, hey, let's put ourselves in a position to compete as best as possible. But high school baseball is different, and I'm really interested to see, like, what the dugout starts to look like and what the communication on the field starts to look like, because these kids have now had that type of experience.
Yeah. So at the end of practice, I asked. We went around and I said, and, like, wanting to know only positives. What things that you guys did this year in high school that you want to bring to our team? And, like, the things that got talked about were, like, silly-ish things.
Yeah.
That, like, don't really matter to the actual game, right? Like, but they do to team culture.
Yeah.
Picking up a teammate.
Yes.
When he's on the bases and the inning ends, picking up your teammate, bringing him his stuff. That was the thing that got mentioned by multiple kids, that, like, we should do that. Like, we should do that way more often. Throwing around the horn.
Yeah.
Right? A thing that, like, it's fine. But I've always been relatively against, because it's cool right up until you airmail it. Sure. And then someone's got to go track down the ball, and it's no longer cool if the catcher throws it over the third baseman's head, or the third baseman throws it over the shortstop's head, or whatever it is. But, like, fine. Yeah, great. Wanting to have props in the dugout.
Okay.
No way your high school coach lets you have props in the dugout, but, like, these are all team culture related things that they're bringing up, that they're each gonna, you know, I have 15 kids, 11 high schools?
Yeah.
10, 11 high schools?
Yeah.
And, like, they're gonna take the positives that they learned from those 10, 11 high schools, and they're gonna bring them into the dugout, and it is definitely gonna, like, change the team culture a bit. And then there's stuff that we've done previously that they're like, we didn't do this in high school, but, like, we definitely need to bring that back and, like, make sure we do that this summer.
Yeah.
Because I missed doing that during high school.
Yeah.
Like kangaroo court, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting for me to ask that question and hear none of their responses have anything to do with baseball.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't
an
approach or defensive positioning or, you know, how we warmed up or how we practiced or anything like that. It was, hey, we should pick up our teammates more often.
Yeah.
We should throw it around the horn. That's fun. Like, there's an extra juice that comes with striking a dude out when you throw it around the horn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it was cool to see that, and I don't know what I was expecting from the answers, but I figured I would hear something
we got to
competitive
do
related.
This type of first and third play.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
We should work more on PFPs, bunt defense, things like this. This is stuff they did a lot with high school, and they've never really done with me.
Yeah.
So, like, I was expecting some more of that. Nope.
Yeah. The around the horn thing is funny because, like, I remember the first time on a 90-foot field, it was like, we're going around the horn, and I was like, I couldn't have been any more yipped up about it.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't screw this up because
Right.
I'm young playing with some older kids. I'm just like, okay. I'm the second baseman, so I catch it from that guy, and then I get, you know.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And, like, we have played against teams who do it at 14U or whatever.
Or even way younger.
And I'm not going to lie, it looks crisp. When you do it, there's like an element of, you know, professionalism to it.
Uh-huh.
Like, I get that. the first time you airmail a third baseman, that element of professionalism goes away very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And so, like, yep, we can throw it around the horn. I swear to God, if you throw it over that third baseman's head, that's the last time we do this. Because, like, that's just a waste of time. We're not, someone's going to track that ball down. Like, I'm not going to let you guys do that.
Yeah, it's so clean when you have like a right-handed hitter in the box, catcher receives the third strike, and the right-handed hitter starts to like peel out, and the catcher kind of like slides behind and just wings it over to the third baseman. And it's just like bop, bop, bop. It looks so clean.
It looks extremely clean.
Yeah.
Right up until it doesn't. So it's like, yep, we can do that.
Yeah.
But we're not, and they're asking about props.
We're bringing Joe Boo back?
Oh, they demanded we bring Joe Boo back, which is fine. They wanted to make sure I cleaned him after he fell in the garbage can last year, and I did clean him. The one child on my team asked if he could bring a sombrero into the dugout.
Okay.
And, if someone hits a triple or a homer, when they get back to the dugout, can we put the sombrero on?
So it's not like a golden sombrero, like
it's not a golden sombrero, right? And I was just like, okay, add doubles into that, like any extra base hit, and you got a deal.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? And I was like,
hell yeah.
Yeah, why not? And they're like, well, like our high school coach wouldn't do that. And I was like, I get that. I want you guys to carry yourselves, and I want to be clear, you are not. But I want you guys to carry yourselves like pro ball players.
Yeah.
Do pro ball players get mad when they strike out? Yup. Just ask some of the Gatorade coolers that have seen the business end of a bat, right?
Or phones.
Or phones or whatever, the bat rack, the helmets, whatever it is. Yeah, I have seen some temper tantrums in a dugout from a professional hitter getting paid $30 million a year.
Yeah.
So, like, sure. Like, the other thing that I watch them do right after having the temper tantrum, all right, well, and then turn it on and refocus on the game.
Yeah.
You can have a temper tantrum when you strike out.
Yeah.
I don't want you to want to strike out. That's okay. You can get emotional about it. When you're playing with a lot of emotion and a lot of energy, things like that are going to happen. You're going to strike out. You're going to be really frustrated. If you slam equipment, then we have a problem. But, like, if you're frustrated and you're back in the dugout and frustrated, that's fine as long as it lasts for a very short amount of time and then you refocus yourself on the game.
Yeah.
Because I watch a lot of professional baseball, and I watch those dudes handle it the same way. They know how hard it is to succeed at that level. So, yeah, when they got guys hitting a home run, they're putting Viking helmet on it. Like, they're doing all these types of things to celebrate those wins because the wins don't come that frequently. Why should I stop you guys from doing that?
Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Have some feel. Don't take it too far.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, have fun. Play with emotion. Play with energy. Have fun. I'm okay dealing with all of what that means.
Yeah. As opposed to, well, you can have fun, but not have fun that way.
Right.
I mean, and again, maybe that's some.
I'm going to tell you exactly the type of fun you can have.
Yeah.
Fun for me, not so much for you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. This summer's going to be good times. I think the only thing I wanted to close with, do you have a segment for Big Leaguers Make Errors too?
Oh, no.
That's okay.
Not this week.
The only thing I wanted to close with is I wanted to talk about our Arizona 14U team. 13s, 14s, because it's a mixed group.
There's also a 12.
That's right. There's also a 12 in there. When we started in AZ, we just screwed up the schedule, like straight up. We should have given them an actual longer development phase before we started playing games. I think we felt a little bit too compelled that we had to.
Yeah, I don't know if we've talked about that in the pod, but we tried to have our cake and eat it too.
And we found out that at least relative to the way that we want to run our system, the way we want to play our games, we have to run our system, which means we have to give ourselves space in the schedule to be able to have a development phase.
Right.
And they just didn't win a lot when we first rolled them out that way. Mm-hmm. We didn't have enough time to get the skill development up. We didn't have enough time to really even do the other thing and lean into like the game result side of things. We just got kind of caught in the middle and didn't really get great results. But we got through that phase. We're like, okay, cool. Won't ever make that mistake again. Let's go into an actual development phase. Really focus on the skill side. Don't play games for a while and see what happens. Mm-hmm. in that period of time, now that we're coming back to playing games, they're winning a lot. That's weird.
They are crushing.
They're 10-5.
Yeah.
Look,
and the 5, I feel like the 5 losses are all relatively close, and those 10 wins are not.
Yeah.
Like, our run differential is incredibly good.
Yeah, yeah. And and the other thing that I actually want to shout out that team for is that, like, they lost their last game, and in that game, they got down early. They they were down 7-0 going into the top of third. But then 2 in the third, 1 in the fourth, 4 in the fifth. And that's that, again, that's kind of like the team culture thing a little bit, right? Is because you give up those type of runs, especially in a tournament format, it's super easy to just like roll over like, oh, this isn't our day.
Right.
They didn't do that.
Right.
And, I have a hard time not seeing that as an expression of both the team culture and also, again, like this development competition against yourself culture, where like you're not out of it unless you quit.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm super proud of those kids and the families because I'm very acutely aware that in these type of markets like a Scottsdale, Arizona, or let's say Florida, for example, there's a crap ton of external pressure on the players and the parents to behave the way that the most of the people in the marketplace do. Mm-hmm. Games. And as we've discussed ad nauseum, you can only burn the candle kind of one way. And you want to avoid the burning the candle at both ends thing, which would be what would try to be developed and competing at the same time. You're just never going to get the best results of both. So I think for those families to show us that type of trust to actually like, okay, you guys say that this development phase is really going to change things.
Yeah, we started the year with a 13U team and a 14U team.
Yes.
Right? The gameplay did not go great in the fall.
Yep.
We shouldn't have played fall ball. Like we should not have put them on the field before we developed them and got them better.
Yeah.
We felt in a lot of ways like it was too much culture shock for people in that kind of market to not play fall ball. Like they're already doing something very different from what anybody else is doing.
By like doing the drive line.
By doing the drive line thing and leaning into training like that. They're already committing to play way less games than they would at any other place. We tried to split that gameplay between some in the fall and some in the spring.
Yeah.
We're not doing that again. That was just not a great idea.
Yeah.
The fall gameplay caused a bunch of people to, about one full team basically of people to say, no, we're out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, couple rough weekends and nope, we're going to go find somewhere else where we can play games that's more competitive. It's like, okay, if you were just here for the games, you were at the wrong place.
Correct.
Right? So we found out a lot of people were there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And they were at the wrong place. The ones who stayed. Yeah. It is great to see them get that kind of payoff at the end.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm so proud of those kids.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of those kids, and I'm very grateful for the families for like showing us that trust. And I think now the signal that we've got is really clear. We're gonna run our playbook.
Yeah.
And with Flex, now we have a thing where it's like, hey, look, I'm not gonna hide the fact that like the Cadillac product for us is teams.
Yeah.
The Lexus level product for us is teams. The best iPhone you can get is iPhone 15 Pro Max, right? Like right now, that's the one. They'll also sell you like an iPhone 14. It's still an iPhone, right? The idea with Flex is now we have the ability to like give different types of customers different places to engage with us, but everybody gets served the same system. And I'm so glad that like we've figured that out in Arizona, that we have Flex to be able to like give those kids who like for a variety of reasons, maybe some people are just not going to be willing to make that type of commitment. That's okay. We can still give you a pretty clear indication of like, this is where you are right now. This is where you need to go. Here's how to get there. We have that through Flex. If you want to be in the Cadillac program, teams, and we can help both. So yeah, I just really wanted to give a huge shout out to AZ14U, which is in truth a 14, 13, and some 12s on that team.
Yeah, there's a couple 12s.
And those kids are going out and getting dubs. And it's just an expression of their skill. Mm-hmm. Skill went up. Their competitive ability went up a ton. Oh, gee, that's weird. Mm-hmm. Super weird.
Yeah.
So, shout out to those kids. Shout out to Jack Butler. Shout out to Blake Thompson for throwing 86.4 as a 14-year-old. I'm not gonna tell you that that's not tight, because it is.
It's tight. Yeah.
Would it scare the crap out of me if I was his coach or his parent? Absolutely. Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. That doesn't mean that he is projected for inevitable surgical intervention.
Right.
And if that's the only thing you have to contribute to the conversation, how deep into this are we? We're deep enough. You're an asshole. You're an asshole. You're not helping anybody's understanding of this thing get better. You are myopic in your perspective on a biologically advanced 14-year-old. Again, you're not digging deep enough, and it's not advancing this conversation in a meaningful
I'm telling
fashion.
you, just man in the arena.
Yeah.
Just send that to them. Yep. Every person who wants to critique but isn't actually getting their hands dirty and getting in there.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody try to pop off like you're selling something that's just, dangerous. It's like, man, I couldn't disagree with that any further. If we are selling anything, we are selling you clarity. Let's have some clarity about what's good. Let's have some clarity about where you are relative to good, and let's have some clarity about what it's going to take for you to get there.
Right.
We sell clarity.
Kid throwing 86. I understand the fear, right? You talked about. I mean, like, I have that fear with multiple kids on my team.
Of course.
Who throw very hard and maybe don't weigh enough.
Yep.
Or have body composition that would make me necessarily comfortable with them throwing as hard as they do.
Yep.
That's a healthy thing for me to be worried about my pitcher's health, right?
Yep.
I think even if you have guys who don't throw hard, coaches are probably worried about pitcher's health.
Yeah.
So ask the question of, how do I keep this kid healthy? What can I do to ensure that, as much as I can, that this kid avoids any major injuries?
Yep.
Instead of just immediately jumping to the conclusion, well, yeah, TJ. Because that ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Correct. If you're just assuming that this kid's going to end up in TJ, then it gives the coach a little bit of a blank slate to run that kid to the ground and be like, well, he was always going to get TJ.
Yep. And look, if you, again, treating this like a monolith, like any kid that throws really hard in an advanced age is inevitably going to get hurt, like that's also just like not true.
Right.
Right?
Well,
like,
and there's varying levels, there's varying degrees of hurt.
Yep.
Right? Your son went through some arm stuff this summer.
Yep.
Like end of the summer.
Medial epicondylitis.
End of this, it happened in basically our last big tournament of the year that he felt it. Well, I guess it had happened slightly before that, but got cleared by PT, felt it again that last tournament, basically got shut down for 3 months. Did he have TJ?
Nope.
He did not, because we shut him down because we were smart about the whole process.
Yep.
And I would like to assume that Blake Thompson's coach is doing the same thing.
Well, and I'll tell you what the opposite of that is. I'm trying to think of how I can do this in a way that camouflages what I know. There's a high school kid that pitched in the high school playoffs, Wesco, here in our area, who got pulled out of a game in the top of third, and he's doing this, right? Grabbing the posterior shoulder, something not good. And it's weird, it's weird if you've never been on a field and see a kid that's throwing mid-eights get pulled out of a game because of obvious injury, everybody just, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. But then the coach comes over, next half inning later, parents are talking to him oh, what happened? And when the explanation is, yeah, he felt some pain last week.
Why was he on the bump today? Yeah.
When my kid got pulled out of our club championships and he was 79, 79, 70, whatever, and then it was 76, 72, and we were okay, something's got to change. We ended up having another tournament the weekend after that, right? Mm-hmm. My kid didn't play.
No, he did not.
Could my kid have helped our team have some amount of additional leverage to win some games? I mean, I would think so.
Yes.
Anybody could, right?
Even as a DH, right?
Yes. Yes. And we had to make a decision that, like, this isn't smart.
Right.
This isn't smart. It's not worth it. And I don't know anything about the personal story about this kid that got pulled out of this high school game. I know he's not a senior, so it wasn't like the last hurrah type of deal. But I am telling you that when the overwhelming majority of the research says the situation you need to avoid is pitching through fatigue and pitching through injury, that's just a known quantity. That's a thing. And then you see coaches exhibit behavior that's the opposite of that. Kid is hurt, but like, we think it's okay. And now we're shocked that, like, you know, this rate of surgical intervention for arm injuries is going up. Like,
and you know, we probably make fun of ISOTO quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I have pretty good ISOTO for the kids that are on my team.
Yeah.
In terms of what it should look like when they're throwing, and alarm bells immediately go off if it looks anything different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're generally, kids are going to lie.
Yeah. And I will give, you know, from what I understand, this kid that I know that got pulled in the third, who was mid-eighths and then had something happen with that shoulder. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that what I heard about the conversation was that, like, they saw a dip in velo. That was what prompted a lot of this conversation about pulling the kid out. Because, again, you might have kids who are just like, they want to be dogs.
Right.
And
like, they
might not feel the difference between going from like 84 to 81.
Right. Or they might feel it and say, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's a pretty significant drop.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Let's not push this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard for a coach to make that decision, honestly. I get it.
It is. And, you know, and to just like touch base on this thing we've been talking about now for several weeks, this is why we need rules that are more in alignment with like the real world of what happens with this type of like chronic workload over time. And because of the advent of things like markerless motion capture, we can start to do some research to like study what is the decay effect on like kinematic efficiency between pitch 20 and pitch 50. Mm-hmm. What's the decay in kinematic efficiency and how that decay in kinematic efficiency affects the load on the joints and like compensatory, right? From pitch 50 to pitch 85. These are things that we can study. These are things we can understand. We've got, we're working on some stuff. Mm-hmm. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. These are solvable problems. So like if your perspective on like you throwing injuries right now is like that, it's like the meme of like the dog and everything's on fire and you're like, this is fine. Like, I'm not going to disagree with you that that's where we are right now, but I don't think it has to stay that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think it has to stay that way. So you feel complete?
I do.
I feel complete.
Sorry about not having a segment, people.
No. We're good. Axbat.com, code DEAL20, get yourself 20% off. Youth Underload Skinny Smash Bat, best $79 you can spend. Youth Power Bat, best $99 you can spend for bat speed development. Skills Skill Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual is also decently good. We are well past 600 people that have bought that thing right now. I am going to put together that Zoom so we can talk. I got to get that off the books. And that's it. Driveline Academy Flex. Mm-hmm. You can find that at drivelinebaseball.com. You can go to Driveline's YouTube and see the 3-minute video we did talking about that process and showing how it works. Driveline Academy snapshots are also a thing with that. So Flex is like a committed, I want to do this for 6 months and be part of this process. That's the thing you can do. If you just want the snapshot and you want to come in one time and get the biomech and the performance reports with technology, you can do that as well.
And we even throw in a free month of programming and meeting with a trainer.
And if you don't see that as our attempt to try to make sure that you understand that the biggest value out of this stuff is consistency over time, that's the path.
Correct.
That's the path. And again, it works for my brother, Jack Butler. a kid who might be a little bit underdeveloped but needs that clear signal about where he is and where he wants to go relative to what he wants, and also kids that have outlier skill too, because both of those kids need different things. We're in a position to be able to serve it. Driveline Academy Flex, Driveline Academy Snapshots. That's a thing. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.